Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. This is the homecoming. Yeah, it's the beginning of season 2. Can you believe it? Season 2 of Deep Space Nine. We've made it. We made it, folks. The homecoming, and It's All Been Trek Before. Hey, come to the home. Come to the home. We talked about it before. Patreon.com/IABD. Not only can you come home to us on It's All Been Trek Before and help us, support us in all that we do, special episodes. You can see our faces, for better or worse. It makes it easier to write your angry letters or your happy letters to Keith@IABDpresents.com. But go out there and support us on Patreon.com/IABD. A homecoming of sorts. Just like this. This is the homecoming on It's All Been Trek Before.
Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Trek Before. Your regular hosts are here.
This is Steven.
And the out of order Keith.
Jimmy Jerome. We're here to discuss the Deep Space Nine Season 2 premiere, The Homecoming, which I successfully persuaded my co-host to watch after next week's Next Gen episode, as I accidentally did. But so we're recording in the proper order that these podcasts come up, but we're doing 2 back-to-back to break the fourth wall, and they watched the Next Gen episode for next week as well. So if you hear any references to that, I'll try not to, but just giving you the context because I just already sensed there could be a reference to it. So first impressions of The Homecoming.
Well, I feel like it would have hit a little differently if I'd watched it before TNG instead, but you know.
Yeah. How so?
Sorry. Getting the references out of the way.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Great cast. Richard Bamer, Frank Langella, uncredited. This is right before the Langella-sance of the 90s. I was like, literally, again, like a cartoon character. Squeaky, squeaky, squeaky. Is that Frank Langella? Am I high? I was drunk. I was definitely drunk, but I was not that drunk. It was indeed Frank Langella. Definitely Kira heavy. So, yeah, I liked it. I think I liked it a lot.
We'll talk about Frank Langella in a second, but I will tell you the reason he did this. He did a lot of work in this era because his kid of things he knew his kids would like. So he did this uncredited for his kids.
Oh, that's awesome.
Anyway, I thought this was an excellent episode. Great way to kick off a season, and really the beginning of DS9 going serial. I mean, it kind of ties into stuff from last year's finale in a way, although that stuff will come back up later. But the first season of DS9 was still pretty episodic. And I think this episode right off the bat looks like it's episodic until you get near the end and you're like, oh, nope, we're going serial now. We're not going to just do Adventure.
Yeah, when it said that
delights me.
I'm like, where's the part 1? And then I was like, oh, and then I was reading it. It's like, oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure this is a 3-parter.
It is, yeah.
So
it's also worth noting that Frank Langella, his kids, that's what he calls his yachts. So.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
Frank Langella, since we mentioned it, playing Minister Jarrow, he's best known for Frost Nixon, The Trial of Chicago 7, according to IMDb. And then they have The Box and Robot and Frank. I would disagree with those two. But he's done so many things. 31 episodes of The Americans not too long ago. Ton of movies.
Dracula, he played Dracula in a movie, the 70s version. Stage actor, Tony Award winner.
Good Night and Good Luck.
Yep.
Was a big one for him. Scrolling through his 200 IMDb credits because he's 102, not 200. Lolita, so many. Junior, I loved Junior back in the day. Dave, the movie with Kevin Kline.
Yeah, he's the heavy in that one.
Yeah. So just one of the all-time great actors, and it's fun that he plays Minister Jarrow in this, just because it's not expected. It's kind of against type for him. I was looking to see if Jarrow's, for some reason I was thinking Jarrow was in more than one episode, but let me see, because I'm not sure and I shouldn't swear to that. He is in 3 episodes. So, it's the next 3 episodes.
Yeah, that's
part
right.
of the story. So we'll get Frank Langella the next 2 episodes of DS9 as well. Unfortunately, that's it for his Star Trek run. Is just these 3 episodes of DS9, but still grateful to have him.
We know he's going to get killed.
Put the Bajoran nose on.
We know he's going to get killed then.
Or he's going to be a love interest for one of the crew members.
No, we don't necessarily know he's going to get killed. There's plenty of Bajoran ministers that come in and then disappear without a trace.
Just like George's mother.
Yeah. Unlike our Vedic Barial or Vedic Wind, who will both be returning on many episodes, there are some that just come and go. So So let's get into this. We start out the perfect way to start a Deep Space Nine season, Odo and Quark.
Mm-hmm.
Quark's already in trouble. The season's just begun, and we've already got them. And Odo telling him he's the enemy, and Odo not being able to explain why Quark would help him, invoking the 76th rule of acquisition that every once in a while declare peace because it confuses the hell out of your enemies. Love it so much. It was just the perfect cold open for a show like this. We get the woman with the purple hair comes down from upstairs in Quark's and gives him an earring. And that's where the mystery gets started. So I like that we have this standalone, goofy, fun scene that also kicks off what the actual story is for the episode.
I was looking up because I didn't do this research before we started, but one of my questions was he asked her if she wants another black hole, which I thought was kind of suggestive. But obviously she was, I found her attractive. A black hole is an actual drink. Fill a glass with two-thirds with ice, add sambuca, and fill with soda.
Well, your freighter captain that you found attractive was played by Leslie Bevis, who has 45 credits. She'll do 2 other episodes of DS9 as a different character. It's the same character in the other 2, a season 3 episode and a season 4 episode, like a year and a half apart. Is best known for Spaceballs and a couple episodes of MacGyver, Alien Nation. So she's got 45 credits, not a ton of credits, but Star Trek uses her again.
Sorry, in their time, a black hole, they don't say, I'm guessing maybe it's still Sambuca and soda, but spoiler alert, Jadzia Dax enjoys drinking black holes at breakfast. So I don't know what, we'll find that out in the future. So anyway, sorry. Continue.
I mean, Jadzia Dax knows how to party.
I believe
that's all. I tried looking up Sambuca on Memory Alpha. That's not what I should have looked up. I should have looked at Black Hole. Black Hole beverage on Memory Alpha. It says a Ferengi drink Jadzia Dax enjoyed having for breakfast. So they were in. Curzon was introduced to the black hole by a bartender known for 100 years. But yeah,
my brother's wedding. It was about 10 in the morning when we were doing those. So I guess I didn't enjoy it for breakfast. But.
Interestingly, if I had looked this up in Memory Alpha, I wouldn't have seen this. But the freighter captain. Oh, so I think this makes more sense. I'm pretty sure that the freighter captain is the same character that this actress plays in the other 2 episodes. They just gave her a name in the other 2 episodes. Because on Memory Alpha, it says they served that name a drink, a black hole, but she declined another. So I'm guessing, it is. So she plays this character 3 times in 3 different seasons.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of fun because it's not a character you expect to return.
Right. Yeah.
So good for her. Again, the serial nature of Deep Space Nine. We should see characters, they should come back to the station at some point. So we go from Quark's bar to Kira's quarters, which is funny because I think Quark makes a comment about, I've never seen the inside. Of course, we've never seen the inside. It was a new set they built for season 2. Not that we'll see it a lot, but it's still fun to see somebody else's quarters besides Sisko's. And she's doing her meditation. Did that remind anyone else of like Vulcan rituals?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, as logical as the Vulcans are, it's kind of spiritual in their logic.
It did make me think about how many, obviously Leonard Nimoy put a bunch of Jewish traditions and stuff into TOS, the Vulcan salute, among other things. So it did definitely put me in that, and I was thinking the same thing. And that's may also just because I associate not a visitor with my first wife, still my first wife. And my first ex-wife, and she's still Jewish. So that may have been the other reason I mixed that all together. And it's like, I all that to say, I agree with you.
She also meditated by candlelight.
Yeah, she actually, I think she did. She changes very quickly, but I guess she's just throwing that on. I guess we've seen her throw on the uniform over that before.
I think that's her undershirt that she wears underneath her uniform top.
Yeah,
we saw it last time when she destroyed the pizza oven. But
yeah.
She mentions to Quark in that scene that she entertains a lot, just not him. Kira doesn't strike me as the type to have a lot of parties, and now I'm intrigued. I want to know more about that.
Yeah, that struck me as well, and I feel like she's one who is like, all right, don't tell anybody you were here. She's
either she has a small circle of close friends that we never end up meeting in the series because they aren't important to the story. It's just like her down to them, or she says that just to get under Quark's skin. I think either way is possible.
I think it's probably the latter, but there's also the sense that she might have meant it more colloquially than that. In the sense of
that
like
she has sex partners.
Yes, entertaining a gentleman caller who is not Quark.
Yeah. Well, and there's all those ships coming through all the time. I mean,
I'm sure Major Kira gets hers, as she should.
I have no doubt. That first scene with Quark, and maybe you mentioned this, Jimmy. I liked that it turns out Quark was telling the truth. Yeah. And I was like, there's still something that doesn't smell right. So, yeah.
Well, again, because it's that rule of acquisition, just deepening that mythology of the we learn so much more about the Ferengi in DS9, and I love that that's one of the rules of acquisition. It makes total sense that that's one of them, because you got to throw off your competition. Mm-hmm. I do like that Kira threatens Quark when he wants to go to her bedroom, and he thinks it could be worth it.
Yeah.
I think he's got a little crush on Kira. Similarly, he has a little crush on Dax, but Dax may be more likely to take him up on it. We'll see. Then we get a really great scene between Sisko and Jake. And I certainly don't want to get ahead of myself, but this plot is only a 2-scene plot. We get one at the beginning and one scene so much later that you kind of forget that there was this scene at the beginning, and yet it ties into the A plot so seamlessly. I loved that way great. I want to talk about the writer of this episode right now, because I think the writing on this episode is excellent. The way it all connects. The story was pitched by Ira Stephen Bear, who's one of the top people on DS9, and Jerry Taylor. So she's just kind of passing through DS9. But the two of them pitched the story, and Ira Stephen Bear then wrote the teleplay by himself. So I think that's why it's so well constructed. But yeah, Sisko is trying to give Jake advice on dating. The too young for the holosuites or to have her in the quarters. Although, what else are we going to do on the station?
I
watch ships.
That's what Sisko suggests. And that's boring. I mean, the end of that scene about, Dad, you're just not ready to have this conversation.
When he's like, well, why don't you just have conversations out here? He's like, that's not private. He's like, yeah, I just wrote, parents just don't understand.
Yeah.
I mean, they could also sit on the promenade and dangle their legs over the balcony through the railing.
That's what Jake does with his friends. That's not where he's going to take a girl.
They get hassled by Yoda.
He did outgrow that, as you said.
Yeah. I mean, we get to see Jake grow quite a bit in the series, and I like that. But in the first season, he and Nog were always ogling women, girls, because they're young, but they weren't getting anywhere with them, other than that kind of one episode where they were both kind of flirting with the one.
Right.
But now we're seeing that they're moving into that adolescent phase where they're actually going to have dates, and they're growing up, which is fun. I like seeing the growing up. And again, just another great father-son scene with the Siskos. Those are always some of the best. Bajor seems extremely near civil war in this episode. I think that's a continuation of things we learned in season 1. I mean, the Cardassians pull out, you've got a provisional government. It's hard to rebuild a world after decades of a conquering. If we want a comparison, look at Germany in the late 40s. It was not a stable country. And I think we're seeing something similar here.
Kira asking to take the runabout, that's a big ask.
It is. Yeah, we weren't there yet. But yeah, no, it is. And I liked the way, first of all, Sisko just kind of dismisses her a little bit not dismisses her, but he's ordering food instead of sitting down to talk to her. But then at the same time, he doesn't tell her no. He says he'll consider it. And I appreciate that.
I liked his due diligence. And on the food thing, I rewound it to be like, wait, what did he get? And it was just whatever. It was the Klingon coffee and a tort. So
yeah,
a something berry tort, a fictional berry tort. I think it was
Eichelberry.
A fictional berry, yes. Coffee and pastry, essentially.
Yeah,
it's his morning. But and the reason she wants to take the runabout is she thinks this one man can prevent the Civil War from coming, Lee Nallis. And she's determined to rescue him because that's apparently where the earring came from. The rumor is that Lee Nallis is on Cardassia 4, which means it's in the Cardassian home system. The planet Cardassia is the Cardassian homeworld. I'm assuming that would be like Cardassia 3 or Cardassian 5, right? It would have to be in that same system. I'm looking at Memory Alpha. Oh, it's the second inhabited planet. That doesn't tell me if it's the third or the fifth planet.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I guess in our system, if we called it Sol, I guess Mercury Sol 1 and
Yes.
Venus is Sol 2, and we're Sol 3.
So Mars. This is essentially Mars, but it's habitable.
Yeah.
I mean, that's assuming that Cardassia is Cardassia 3. It could be Cardassia 5. Somewhere in that same band, though.
Yeah.
Certainly close in distance.
So numbered geographically, so to speak.
I'm making assumptions based on every other Star Trek show and movie.
Oh.
Because they have established in other Star Trek that they name the planets, unless the planet has its own name. They name the planets based on the sun's name, and the numbers are from the sun out.
Oh.
So Earth is Sol 3 in the Star Trek numbering system.
So Cardassia is the name of the sun?
Apparently. Because they say the Cardassian system. So yeah, Cardassia would be the name of the sun then. I don't think that's ever mentioned explicitly, but that would be... Unless you could say like Sol is the Earth system. You could say that.
Right.
You know?
I think that's what they probably would have said. And then my thought was it would be like the fourth planet inhabited by Cardassia. Or by the Cardassians. Yeah.
I would be very surprised if they have 4 planets in the same solar system that are habitable.
I thought
That seems. I mean, we only have 1, so.
Well, I mean, like a colony or something. I mean, not necessarily like in the same system that they originated from. But
so by naming it Cardassia 4, I assumed it was in the system, which made me think they really have no excuse for not knowing what's going on there. But Keith raises an interesting point. If they name their colonies that way, and it's in a different solar system, that gives it a whole different meaning. And that makes more sense from a story perspective that it's further out, and so Cardassia government isn't necessarily watching it as well.
Right.
My other thought was that the Federation calls it Cardassia 4, but the Cardassians might call it Michi Michi or something like that, or whatever. I don't know.
The Cardassian homeworld is Cardassia Prime, by the way.
Okay.
Well, there we go. So I mean,
that's what they call it.
So yeah, I mean, it could mean that there are 3 other planets after that, and then one of them is like Cardassia Pluto. They call it.
Oh, it's okay. Memory Alpha says Cardassia Prime is Cardassia 2. So that indicates that Cardassia 4 is in the Cardassian home system.
By the way, Cardassian Prime, terrible streaming service. I cannot recommend it.
It says, okay, here we go.
You have to spring for Cardassia Plus.
If you don't want ads. It does say the Cardassian system has 5 planets colonized by the Cardassians. Cardassia 1, also known as Cardassia Prime, is the homeworld, but Cardassia 2, 3, 4, and 5 are in their solar system colonized by the Cardassians. So they have 5 habitable planets in the
just really good real estate. That's how they got so powerful.
That's
location,
a lot.
Location.
Only 5 light years from Bajor, which is really close. So before Kira gets the runabout, though, while we're still on the station, we have a terrorist graffiti.
Yeah.
Where they draw a red baseball cap and write MAGA on it, essentially.
Well, while you're tilted that way, it looked like the OK white power sign that we've seen way too much of lately. Yeah.
Yeah.
Was it a thing then?
I mean, I would assume the white power sign was a thing in the 90s, but I mean, it's just...
I was trying to think of, I kept thinking, they got marked. Tagged is what they called it.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole thing about Bajor for the Bajorans, that is so the Make Bajoran Great Again. They call them the Circle, but it might as well be called MAGA. And it predates our MAGA by 25 years, which just shows you that those forces were already in play, and this was a very obvious future.
Yeah.
Cisco playing with the baseball in his office, and then the juggling it back and forth was fun. I mean, that's the baseball we saw him acquire last season. But that whole sequence where Dax is like, give Kira the runabout, and then he gives Kira the runabout, and O'Brien's like, he gave Kira the runabout? It's like everybody knows about the runabout. It's
I thought that was hilarious.
I love how that crew has come together, right? Like they're now Kira's a full-fledged member of their senior staff.
Yeah. That was an LOL. I enjoyed that very much.
So O'Brien not only knew about this, but went ahead and modified a runabout because he was that sure that Cisco was going to grant permission.
Well, it was the plans to do it. He'd been sketching out what it would take to do it.
Right. You're right. He hadn't modified it yet, but the fact that he spent the time already figuring it out, I think means he was pretty confident.
Yep.
she was going to get it. And of course, we know O'Brien's backstory with the Cardassians. It's really a shame that did not come to play in this episode, because in the next gen, we learned that O'Brien had previously fought the Cardassians and had like a real beef with them, which I think we retouched on in the early days of DS9, but not again in this episode. And I think it would have been a better episode if he asked to go because of his history rather than just being assigned as he's a good pilot.
He did hint at it. He alluded to it in a more realistic way that it's like he wouldn't go to Kira and mention his whole story again. He just says he knows what happens to people who are imprisoned.
Yeah, I thought that was a reference to Chain of Command when Picard was tortured.
Could be.
The Cardassians have claimed to release all Bajoran prisoners. That's a big concession for them pulling out of the system. I'm not kidding. So the part of the Cardassians pulling out of the Bajoran system was the treaty with the Federation. And we know they did it because they'd already stripped all the resources from Bajor. So they have political reasons why this wasn't a hardship. But the fact that they said they released all Bajoran prisoners seems like a big deal. You'd think they'd hold some back for negotiation purposes.
Well, apparently they did.
Well,
I guess I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry.
I mean, not necessarily, because even when we find out they still have them, they immediately are like, "Nope, sorry, we didn't know they were there. They're yours. We'll release them."
But the tone. It's the Dukat tone where it is that thing that I love that they do actually with especially I think Romulan's kind of do that too sometimes when they can have that kind of banter where they know sort of that they're lying to each other in a way but not quite, or some they're going through the motions of having that conversation civilly, but they both kind of understand what the situation is.
They know that you know that they know that you know.
Yeah.
I mean, I completely agree with that, Keith, but I think the other side to that is they could just deny that the prison existed and still hold back those other 4. And the fact that they're issuing an apology, even though an apology doesn't cost anything, and sending the other 4 prisoners back. I don't know. It seemed to maybe Gul Dukat just read the rules of acquisition and he was practicing every once in a while, let your enemies win, and confuses the hell out of them or whatever. Because, and that's so great. Another thing I didn't realize until this moment that connects in this episode, that Ferengi rule of acquisition absolutely is applicable to the Cardassian Bajoran situation.
Interesting. So they do these thematic things. But all right, so the episode with the prisoner that Kira suspected, who was pretending to be the war criminal, essentially.
Duet.
I think there's a certain level of optics. Once it gets past a certain point, they have to recognize that they've been caught. They need to do a bunch of damage control and make sure that doesn't escalate past it. They're picking, choosing their battles, and I think it's a better negotiation position for them, so to speak, if they appear to be on the up and up. So it's like it's the game was okay. You caught us. Well, here you go. And I don't know. I mean, it's possible too that there could have been some sort of splinter thing, but who knows?
It was such a brief appearance by Dukat. I wanted it to be longer. I wanted him more in the story. I love him every time he shows up. He's such a great villain.
Yeah, but something about his delivery made it seem more like he was. It was very much like a canned statement. Like, I know I have to say these things. You know that I have to. You know that I have to say these things. I'm not really sorry, but this is the way it is.
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, no, I didn't think he was really sorry. It still just feels a little out of character for him to say sorry.
Well, I mean, in the sense of, do you think it was possible that he was surprised by this, or rather someone else? Yeah, so whole government knew it was there.
I mean,
I wouldn't say the whole government, but Dukat's high enough up. I think he knew.
Yeah, they were working, getting those lucrative rocks into those baskets. I mean. Whatever that is.
So before we get to that, because the prison camp I definitely want to talk about, but before we get to that, Sisko's hesitation to give Kira the runabout, I feel like they did a pretty good job explaining why he's hesitant. Because while they shouldn't have the prisoners, and if they do have the prisoners, they should be rescued, he is sticking his neck out because Starfleet, the Federation just signed a peace treaty with Cardassia recently, and this could reignite the war. So that whole discussion there of why he's hesitant makes total sense. Kira, when she leaves with O'Brien, says this mission's either success or death, essentially. and I will say, for those that think O'Brien's in a terrible marriage, probably going to kick out the scene of, I don't care if I die, I don't have to come home to Keiko. I don't subscribe to that theory, but I know there's a lot of fans that are like, O'Brien is always trying to escape his marriage, and death would be better than staying married to Keiko.
So, I mean, I had to point out the technicality that she didn't actually say die. She just said, two things. We're either coming back with him or we're not coming back, sort of.
Right.
They could just keep hanging around and waiting until they can find an opportunity or,
That could be. The way they bluff their way past the Cardassian outpost reminds me very much of Star Trek 6, is it? When Uhura has the code books out and is trying to trick the Klingon outpost by speaking Klingon from the actual paper copies.
It was also very Return of the Jedi to me. It's an old code, but it's legitimate.
Oh, you're from the ship.
Fly casual.
Wait.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that she made up a Gaul. And there's enough Gauls. I mean, Gaul is essentially their captain, or maybe slightly higher than a captain, but usually we see them in charge of a ship.
For an episode that has so much seriousness, there's a lot of fun stuff like that in it, too.
That's the best. This is where I keep telling you, this DS9's closest to the original series, because I feel like the mixing of the serious and the camp is something the original series got right in its best episodes. Yeah. And Next Gen doesn't do that as much. And I like the lighter.
But that's a great, good. They're like, well, they don't know. They're afraid of whoever this ghoul is. Since we're on the trip, I'll get into fashion. When Kira first showed up with her travel outfit, I'm like, what the hell is she wearing? What is this? And then it grew on me. And then I did like the earring too.
It was the algae.
It that too.
It grew. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, and then so I ended up liking it a lot actually, and that may have something to do with her gambit to get past the guards or whatever. Their whole
once they got down to the planet,
and they're like, "Hey, I'm going to sell her." The whole I don't know what term you want to apply to that.
The whole thing where it's the prostitute. Yeah,
I'm not endorsing that. I'm just saying Nana Visitor is a very sexy woman. That's all I'm saying. I'm not endorsing anything.
She is, but again, that also called to mind Uhura and the feather dance in Star Trek 5.
Okay, that's what I thought you were talking about at first. But I was confused. I thought you were jumping ahead to that. But there was just something nice about both O'Brien and Kira, the way they played that part.
Yeah. Yeah, the prostitution was a little bit much for me. A little bit
too expensive.
No, just
too many gold pressed platinum strips.
2 bars of gold pressed platinum. No, I don't know that that's the gambit I would have thought those characters would have used, but it was still fun.
Yeah,
they have 12 prisoners there. How many guards do they have for 12 prisoners? I counted at least 8. You have 8 guards for 12 prisoners at a camp?
I think you better. Sometimes it's better to have too many than too few, especially when something like that would happen. Eventually,
yes, it just seems like overkill.
Well, it's not necessarily for the prisoners as it would be for people who are trying to get them out. Like you wouldn't just have 2 guys show up with a phaser and as pretty much almost happened.
I mean, I don't think they were expecting it, or else they'd have better systems than what they had, where they just lower a force field and they come in. And that one Cardassian that comes running at them is not even shooting. He's just holding his gun as he runs, which gives them a chance to pick him off. So he's clearly not like on a hairpin trigger ready to fight back any invaders.
Well, that's
why they have so many, because they're not the best.
Well, all right. First of all, you would have to have shifts. You can't have like 3 people on guard 24 hours a day, or whatever the days it would be there. And they have to have shipments or deliveries come through. So it's probably kind of low security. They're not quite expecting things, but they still have to have enough show of force to prevent like mercenaries or just run-of-the-mill scoundrels coming through and going, "Hey, we can just take this place for everything and just run off," So
sure. I mean, I still think having 2/3 as many guards as prisoners is a really high ratio, but I get your point.
Yeah.
I will say,
and of course, prison rights.
That's my alternate episode. Is I wanted Hogan's Heroes story at this camp, where the Bajorans were in with the Cardassians, like tricking the stupid Cardassians very easily in a comedy.
I wish my alternate episode was that much. Well, I guess mine's fun depending on how you look at it, but mine's essentially the whole Kira seduction thing turns into a Skinamax movie, which this was the heyday of Skinamax movies.
I don't think Kira would have gone through with it.
It's just more of a, for lack of a better term, chained heat kind of movie, I guess. That's going back to the 70s, but I guess they did them on Skinamax too. Now that I think about it, in the 90s, they had some. They weren't called Chained Heat, but there were a lot of prison, women in prison movies.
So when they get to the prison camp, they decide not to beam out the prisoners because they have to beam them 2 at a time, and there's 12. So as soon as the first 2 are beamed out, that alerts the guards, and then it becomes really hard to beam the other 10 out, which makes sense. I guess they can beam through the force field. It's not a great force field that's protecting this prison. But then when they rescue the 8 and 4 stay behind to hold off the guards, or they don't even rescue 8 because a couple of them get shot down and killed, why don't they try to beam out the 4 that they leave behind?
I kept thinking that almost immediately. I was like, wait a minute. What during the space of this conversation, you should be trying to can we at least look at it, see if we can get a position, because they're all grouped over by the rock, right? So anyway,
and even if they can only beam 2 at a time, 2 of them can keep shooting and hold off the I think that is a major plot hole. I don't think there's a lot of plot holes, but that is definitely a plot hole. I mean, I guess the counter argument would be like, it was such a hectic situation they didn't even think about it.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, nah.
Well, see, the problem is they I think they tried to think about all right, they're mentioning this while they're still in orbit to explain to the audience, why don't you just do this? Well, this is why we can't do this. Why not just say you can't beam at all? I mean, maybe the transporter is broken or something scrambled or anything.
I say most prisons, I would think the force field would prevent beaming. And granted, the 4 that were holding them off were outside the prison force field, but then it just takes one line to say, hey, they've expanded the force field. We can't beam them out.
Yeah, any number of things.
It would have been very easy fix. This was clearly an oversight. They do say there's 2 Galler-class warships coming in, which I'm surprised on a planet in the Cardassia system there aren't already Galler-class warships patrolling. Galler-class is their main fighter starship, like their version of Galaxy-class, essentially. It's the one we always see get into firefights with the Federation. I am surprised the Runabout can outrun the 2 Galler-class warships. I'm pretty sure the Runabout only goes to like warp 4 or 5, and the Galler-class can go faster than that. So the fact that they got away seems also a stretch of the truth. Again, you could explain it with a line of dialogue of Ducat, like, we realize they're mistaken, we let them get away, but that's not the way they played it. So we get back to Deep Space Nine. Minister Jaro, who we've already talked about, played by Frank Langella, shows up, and he immediately both thanks and threatens Kira in the same scene, which is about what we've come to expect from the Bajoran government, I feel like, at this point.
Yeah. The possibility of the prostitution ruse going too far. Like I'm impressed because I'm still thinking back to the thing where Picard was being tested, and we realize this is just like a guy wearing a hologram or something. Like, what was the end game? Remember they were testing love on the planet?
Yes.
And he was just in some sort of disguise.
Yes.
They'd already kissed. So how far was he willing to go with whatever's going to happen there, and what would have happened, etc.
Yeah.
I think right. Anyway, callback. Sorry.
Oh, I like it. Good callback.
That's a good. That's
You don't remember that? I was pointing that out.
No,
before.
I do remember. I'm just catching up with you on the Kira side of it. Like,
that too. Yes.
Yeah. Like, huh.
I thought that was your alternate episode. I thought that was what you were saying.
My alternate episode is
it's just,
it's just Kira's just getting on with everybody. It's not even a prostitution thing.
Gotcha. It was she used it to get past the guards, but then she actually is only having sex with,
And I don't think Kira would ever go through with it with a Cardassian. I just don't think so.
Yeah.
Not this
of course, that's what the Skinamax twist would have been, though, of course. Just sort of tossing aside character motive just to get to the scene.
She widows them. She kills them. And
right.
Well, she doesn't eat them, but she kills them. Well, you know what? Whatever. Moving on. We have to keep our clean range.
At this point, we've met Lee Nallis now, the guy they say could unite Bajor, avert the Civil War. He is the hero we need. He's played by Richard Bamer, best known for Twin Peaks.
Yep.
West Side Story.
West Side Story.
He played Tony in West Side Story, the 1960s movie. Yeah, he was in 30 episodes of Twin Peaks as Benjamin Horne.
Love Richard Bamer.
As well as in the Twin Peaks reboot, the continuation.
Who was Benjamin Horne? And I'm trying to think what character he was. Like, what did he do in Twin Peaks? Was he?
He ran the hotel, right?
He was the owner of the Great Northern Hotel.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The richest citizen of Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
Expressed his love for Laura Palmer over his own daughter, Audrey. I'm now reading from the Twin Peaks wiki.
And West Side Story is my favorite. It's still my favorite film musical. So I have a soft spot for Richard Bamer for sure.
Yeah. He did 6 episodes of Murder, She Wrote, obviously as 6 different characters, because that's usually what happened in these things. And he also is in the next 6 seasons of Deep Space Nine as the first officer. So,
oh, wait, what?
Because he's replaced Major Kira at the end. No, I'm kidding. But obviously, he's in the next several episodes of Deep Space Nine before they resolve. And those are his only Star Trek credits. Is this 3-part episode of Deep Space Nine. So, I mean, would you? We'll get to the end. We'll get to the end in a minute. Lee Nollis, I feel like, similar to Duet and other things that we've already seen in DS9, the person is not who you expect them to be based on what's said about them. And because I think war creates a lot of legends and myths and heroes. Sure. I mean, his actual story of what happened is total accident. He fell into it, not even trying to do something.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he doesn't deserve to be hero, but the exaggeration, and I'm not even saying the exaggeration's wrong, because as people needed those types of stories, but yeah, he's not the hero they need. Or he's the hero they need, not the hero they deserve.
I did right. Major needs its white knight.
Yeah.
Major needs its sit the dog.
There's a that's a,
on me.
There is that's a common thing that, well, not common, but it's come up in a number of things we've seen, I'm sure. It still seems like he has a good sort of character.
Mm-hmm.
I kept expecting there to be some sort of knife waiting to be turned or something, some little thing where we find out he really is selfish or any number of things. But at least he, in the privacy of, just talking to Cisco, he freely, he wanted to talk to somebody about this and have somebody believe him. He's uncomfortable with all the attention, but he's still handling the way he needs to be. He's not like trying to blow anything up. He's whatever, you know what I'm saying? We've seen that other story too many times where it was probably something more on the beginning of season 1, right? With Kira meeting up with one of her old associates from one of her fellow terrorists. I say that sarcastically, but I don't know. I mean, I guess technically, right?
I mean, if they had lost the war, they would have been known as terrorists, but because they won,
freedom fighters or something.
Freedom fighters. No, I think you make a good point. I do think we got a couple more episodes to get to know this character, so we may change our minds on him, but I definitely feel like Sisko's not the first person he confessed this to. I feel like he's probably told a lot of people this story, and they still just keep blowing it up anyway.
Right. The way he said it, it made it sound like things were too hectic for him to even get the entire story out to someone who would even willing to listen that far.
In the moment, I feel like those 11 other prisoners he spent the last 10 years with, he probably told all of them, and they still are treating him like the hero. So
they were probably like, enough already. You've told us that.
quit being modest. We don't believe you anyway. Shut up.
Right.
Yeah. So the next thing that happens in the story is the Rom and Quark scene. We get Rom back to check Quark's brother. This 1 for you, 6 for me. 1 for you, 6 for me. When Rom complains, 1 for you, 7 for me.
Just a great community. You knew something like that was coming, but he still let that pause build up and just really ate up that punchline. That one stuck with me for some reason, or rather that was. Oh, obviously, that's one of the scenes that I recalled having seen, even though I didn't remember the episode as a whole, like at all. But I remember having seen that scene, and then the confrontation suddenly, to make it almost seem like it might have been linked. Some enemies of Quark or something.
I appreciate that Rom was pushing back in this scene, because in the first season they hadn't really figured out who Rom was yet. And he did try to kill his brother in the one episode, which seemed really out of character for the Rom we get to know. But also, he was very subservient most of the time we saw him, other than when he tried to kill his brother. And this is more the Rom we know, where he loves his brother, but he's also tired of being taken advantage of him. And I feel like we will see that play out over the next few seasons. And I appreciate getting into that character here. The Rom although Rom does walk away with no money, which, again, I think is kind of consistent to the Rom character in a certain extent. But he doesn't even take his ones. He just walks away. Although, to Quark's credit, he's still counting out Rom's money even after Rom leaves. Yeah. Which I would think, if you're a good Ferengi, he walked away, you just keep it all. But Quark is still going to pay his brother.
That makes it even more fun in a way, because it's just that he's that delighted at his thing anyway. He's still just having fun with just tossing the pile.
So Rom must own a minority share of the bar, right? If he gets paid out this way.
or an employee or something. So
he's got other employees, and he's not saying one for you, one for you, one for you, and 6 for me.
True.
Then Quark gets branded by people in masks.
Poor Quark.
Which leads to the scene where they immediately remove the brand, which is great. The brand is the circle symbol. It's the terrorists. Yeah. But I like that Kira tells him he'll be as handsome as he ever was. And Quark takes that to mean, oh, she thinks I'm handsome, even though we know that's not what she meant. Then we get the second Jake scene where we find out his date's been canceled because the girl he was going to date, or at least her parents, are believers in the circle, or have at least believed it enough to not mess with them.
I think, and this might just be the cynic in me, or the cynical former, whatever. I'm being cynical. I think she made that story up.
You think she really didn't want to date with him and saw it as a convenient excuse?
Yes. That's what I think.
I don't think so, but that's fun.
Yeah.
I mean, as Jake gets older, they play him as like he actually has good luck with the ladies. He's a handsome man. And
he's a good-looking guy. He should.
Yeah,
but in this instance, I think for whatever reason, that's why she is my shady choice for this episode.
Yeah, Jake's still a little bit of the pathetic kid at this point, but he becomes a guy that you believe the ladies would want to date. And you're right, he is attractive.
It immediately struck me as, oh no, I'd love to date you, but my dad.
He's in the circle thing now. They meet it at night with white hoods. You wouldn't understand.
I'd love to help you, but my manager says no. I cannot offer you this deal on this car.
I mean, if she had not actually agreed to date him and then said that, I'd buy it a little more. Your alternate theory, but I think that she agreed to date him. I'm assuming her parents really are.
I think he said something wrong on the date.
Oh, like for his suggestions of what to do, maybe?
Yeah.
Suddenly, Nahus tries to steal away on a freighter ship to escape the station and escape the spotlight they're thrusting in. And that's when he tells Sisko the story. And I did think that one line was a bit corny of, I'm going to tell you a story and you may even believe it.
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
That's what he tells Sisko before he confesses. Yeah.
I was like, I mean, hey, we already know you're a coward. You're stowing away on a ship to leave.
Yeah. Well, and Sisko says Bajor doesn't need a man, it needs a symbol. And again, this ties into the Dark Knight, the Batman stuff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I thought his story was really odd, but which is fine about it. I thought it was very compelling. I thought it was weird, the detail that the Cardassian was in his underwear.
Yeah.
Is that necessary?
I think it paints the picture. I think it gets everything across that not only he was that unprepared for a confrontation and probably preoccupied and just it led up to that great line at the end. The look on his face was embarrassment.
Yeah. And details are what makes a story convincing.
True.
Yes, that's true.
But we end that scene with it's a legend, not a lie, which that's semantics there. Mm-hmm. But Sisko says legends are as powerful as truth. And that is that mm-hmm. I think there's a certain truth to that in a way.
All right. So now he'll become for the purposes of the Bajoran Civil War, General Lee.
So oh my God, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
But he's on the other side. He's not on the circle side.
It's all perspective. They're good people on both sides.
Oh my God, Keith.
When you have to choose when you have to choose between history and legend, print the legend.
So the Bajorans make up a brand new title for Lee rather than naming him like Major or an existing title. And then they give him Kira's job. So my best theory, and I don't remember parts 2 and 3 enough for this to be a spoiler. This is my best theory in the moment as I'm trying to figure out why the ministers give him this great, awesome title and then put him on the space station instead of keeping on the planet where I feel he's needed to stop the Civil War. And my guess is the ministers are power hungry and they don't want him in their way. So they're getting rid of him by pushing to the space.
That's really good. What does the title mean? Did they ever say? It sounded like just some sort of alien word,
like super admiral instead of admiral? Essentially, we're making up a title because the highest title we think you deserve a better title because you're the legend.
That's even better. Here's a we're just it's like the Bajoran word for figurehead or something
or PLT.
Yeah.
I know we always talk about oh man, we can't be too worried about what's going to happen to Kira or whoever, because we We know we're gonna see them later. But I was genuinely like, wait, what just happened? What's going on here? And then the to be continued surprise.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, that's what you were referring to.
Yeah.
Okay, I kind of zoned out for that last little bit because I remember hearing, now that you say it, something about her being reassigned from the station.
Yeah.
So
they gave Lee Knowledge her job.
I see.
And recalled to Bajor.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
The last line of the episode.
Now, see, I feel like DS9 is still a new enough show, has broken the rules just enough that you might wonder if this is legit. That we're getting rid of her off the show.
Yeah.
And that is a testament, because if this was next gen and they're like, we've reassigned Riker and here's Shelby, you're like, yeah, whatever. But in this, it feels more authentic in this regard.
Yeah. And again, not knowing the show as well, but still pretty sure to not a visitor. And
the to be continued was surprising to a lot of people when this aired. Yeah. Because it wasn't listed as a part 1, and next week was not listed as part 2, and they don't expect DS9 to be serial.
Yeah.
So
I was surprised.
No, in a good way.
But I'm telling you, people, it is super serial.
I'm super serial, guys.
Yes,
super serial.
Isn't that a size of cereal? Or is that giant? I'm thinking of giant. There's family, there's giant.
What?
Yeah, I'd forgotten that to be continued was coming. I was like, oh, this seems pretty neatly wrapped up until like, oh, you have Kira's job.
Wait,
and then you're like, what?
Yeah,
I wasn't quite doing it.
I mean, it's literally the last line of the episode. Really, it is like,
and that is the one thing that undermines the to be continued. Had there not been a to be continued there, you're more likely to believe that Kira is gone.
Yeah.
Whereas by the to be continued, you're like, oh, okay, Kira's gonna come back. We just need another part of the story.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's get to our rankings. Who was your shady character of Homecoming?
Wow.
Jake's would-be girlfriend is my shady.
I really like that answer, actually.
I'm going with Minister Jarrow because he's thanking and threatening. He's putting Lee Nahlas on the station. He's being shady.
Mm-hmm.
Quark's being not shady for once.
Yeah.
I was about to say that he admitted to being shady on a couple of
occasions. He's being shady by not being shady.
Right. But then also the 1 for me, 7 for me, or 1 for you, 7 for me.
He's open about that. That's not shady. He's open about that arrangement.
Yes, he is.
Are you going with Quark, Keith? Or
actually, I'm going to go with the circle.
The circle. They are.
Lead hood wearer, Brander. Maybe the Brander.
Oh, that's
the Brander.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean they're the definition of shady for sure. Who's your annoyance in this episode?
I struggled. I think I landed on Jarrow.
Yeah, it's hard to pick an annoyance. I'm gonna say the prison guards, just because they're bad shots. There's so many guards per prisoner, and yet they still can't prevent an escape. It just seemed off.
I'm gonna go with whoever designed the transporter for the shuttle or for the runabout.
That's a good one too.
But you can only do 2 at a time. It's because their transporter pad's so small. You don't have room for a big transporter pad.
I guess I'm so. It feels. I know you probably know this the quote unquote science behind it, or rather the way the rules are supposed to be done consistently. But every now and then, probably far too often, we see them abuse the site to site transporting rules. So it seems like, why can't they do that because of that? Especially if they're on the surface. Well, yeah.
I mean, as I understand it, you look at the starship. There's a transport pad with 6 circles in the middle. They can't be more than 7 people at once, right? They have to use the cargo transporter down in the shuttle bay or whatever to beam larger things. So this runabout's small. It only has 2 pads. It can only beam 2 people. Makes sense to me.
This episode or next week's where there's 3 people together, they're like, beam us up. And they're just like, yep, we got all 3 of you at once.
I see. You're right. When they're hugging or whatever,
right.
When they're touching. Yeah.
And there's, emergency transport services. We're going straight to sickbay, not to the,
Well, when they do that, my understanding essentially is how it would work is they're technically beamed to the transporter room and then beamed to the other place, but you don't see them. You don't actually materialize them, right? They stay in the buffer part of it.
I guess, makes sense.
While we're doing our science quibbles, I forgot about that. I meant to write this down. O'Brien says, I can disguise the runabout so it looks like a Lepasian or some whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, then why don't you just do that all the time with every ship? If it's that easy.
Because then it doesn't work if you do it all the time.
60%
I think there are times when you would want to, I see what you're saying in a sense that there are times where you would want it to be clear that you're on official Starfleet business or DS9 business or whatever.
Right.
But there are so many times when it comes up, hey, we need to do something a little off the books or clandestine.
Yeah.
Why aren't you just doing that?
Well, and it should be used so often that you no longer trust those signals.
It's like, why don't they just make the airplanes out of the black boxes?
Right.
Yeah, because you'd think maybe Starfleet only uses on special occasions, but the Klingons and the Cardassians and those other races would use it more often. And then you never trust any signal.
Mm.
So, yeah. Who are you going to have a drink with?
I'm going to get a black hole with the captain.
The freighter captain?
Yep.
Her name, I forgot her name already. I'll just put freighter captain. But we know who you're talking about. It starts with an R, but I can't remember. I'm having a drink with Kira. She just lost her job. She needs somebody to have a drink with.
Yeah.
Well, actually, Cisco popped into my head because he was by the replicators and doing the thing where sound like he would know a lot more drink options than I would.
Some Klingon coffee.
Rionoj is the freighter captain's name when we next see her. So I'm going to put the actual name there so that maybe in future seasons, if you pick her again, we'll realize it's the same person.
Perfect.
Ranking the episode, I mean, as much as I love it, I want to put it last this season so far.
Wow.
Any objections?
Wow.
Yeah.
I was legitimately confused about whether or not this was the first episode for a second. I was like thinking, wait, did we already watch it?
I was too. I was like, what was it? Nope. This was it. Yeah.
This was a great episode. I have a feling it's going to stay up. I don't think it's going to go to the bottom. What a great way to start a season.
Yeah.
Interesting. It was a standalone adventure, but it was also interesting and opened up these stories and really sold a bunch of the characters. I mean, we have great stuff from O'Brien, Kira, Cisco, Quark, Odo, all in one episode. Yeah,
and I've been talking about the crazy episodes I've been liking on TNG lately, but this is one where there's a lot of different styles and things going on, and they're balanced really, really well. So
interconnected.
I was also going to say that all the performances felt pretty polished in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
This felt much more like conventional DS9 acting, and everyone, it seems more comfortable with their characters, and it just nothing took me out of it. As we were
when Frank Langella shows up on set, you bring your A game.
Yeah, I mean, and next week we got. My hunch is we got pretty stellar cast next week too. Guest cast next week too. But yeah.
Speaking of next week, we're going to watch the Next Generation episode Interface, where Geordi is distracted by the news of the possible loss of his mother while he uses a new remote probe technology to search for a downed spacecraft. Until then, live long.
To be continued.
As a legend. And they won't let you die then.
Gotham needs its wife. Sick the dogs on me.
Hey.
I am the prisoner that sneaks up on you while you're trying to take a bath.
Or whatever. I don't know why you're in your underwear if you're taking a bath, but hey, teach their own.
It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?